Forgotten Land Nintendo Switch 2 Edition plus Star-Crossed Worlds, the best Kirby game for increasing the word count of your college essays, has been released. Have fun, don't spoil for people who haven't played, and rediscover, nudge nudge wink wink, what makes Forgotten Land one of the best Kirby games of all time. Now, when the original game came out, 3.5 years ago, time flies when the game is so good you're still playing it after all that time, I made a video going over how the various copy abilities held up when playing efficiently after a full week. Wowza. Obviously, I made that video knowing that things would change over time, but wow, if things change drastically over time. So I keep you wonderful people waiting. Let's get into ranking all of these copy abilities. Yay! Well, there's some things we have to go over first, but thankfully it's just one simple, important thing. How are we ranking all of these abilities? I have timestamps set up for each ability, and there's 14 of them, even though there's only 12 abilities. Klaire Fluffle, more like Klaire Fraudful, am I right? Haha, haha, haha. Anyway, we'll get to what the 2 extra slots are for when we get there, but similar to my other videos, we're ranking these abilities on a scale of efficiency. Typically, more efficient Kirby play means speedrunning, not waiting around and risking things going wrong, just going big zoomies and beating the game fast. Now, I'm not looking for peak world record stretch, just speedrun viable is good enough, but still efficient is efficient. Now, I have an entire video explaining why I use efficiency as my benchmark, but for a very brief explanation, if I have to choose between finding the Deep Sleep upgrade, using rare stones on it at the Waddle Dee Blacksmith, then waiting out the Deep Sleep animation cycle to get random upgrades, or just buying attack and speed boosts at the upgrade shop, I'm going to the upgrade shop. That said, to keep things fresh, I'm not just looking at the standard story mode options, your any percent, hundos, all Waddle Dees, post-game, etc., but also the ultimate cups. Since I can't factor in Star-Crossed World stuff yet, this will just be Meta Knight Cup, Ultimate Cup, and Ultimate Cup Z. Oh, and on that note, all ability upgrades are being combined into one ability slot. Saves me a lot of repetition, you a lot of boredom, and or maybe sadness, at seeing cool stuff ranked low, all that jazz. Believe it or not, even with these notes in mind, I wouldn't consider a single ability in this game to be actually bad. In some sense, they all have their uses and can do things that make them viable, even if only as a backup strat at best. Anyways, I've definitely yapped long enough, aside from a minor spoiler warning, I won't go into too much, so let's get started with the only ability that I consider bottom tier. Number 14, Sleep. Yeah, this one shouldn't come as much of a surprise. It's definitely not useless, but if you were to ask anybody what they thought the worst ability was, they'd probably tell you Sleep. Simply put, until you get Deep Sleep, it's basically useless. All it does is recover a bit of your health, which, yeah, that's nice, but when playing efficiently, there are a lot of better ways of restoring your health. With the discovery, you're going to hear that word a lot in this video, by the way, of the retry glitch, and just look at this footage here to know why explaining it now would be too much. The Sleep near the pool Waddle Dee has been finally tragically routed out of any percent, leaving Sleep with nothing. Deep Sleep, however, still has the absolute most minor of niches with the stat boosts for Ultimate Cups. If you're grinding Ultimate Cups, you likely want coins for upgrading your various abilities, which, I mean, it's not as hard as getting the rare stone, so it's not as useful, but I don't know, if you want to get all of the gacha figures and grind the Ultimate Cup stuff, Deep Sleep is great. That said, it's certainly the worst ability by enough of a margin to now have abilities that are in the low tier. So which abilities are low tier, mayhaps? Well, number 13, Bomb. Unfortunately, we already have to talk about my favorite ability in the game, that being Bomb. Specifically, Chain Bomb is my favorite of the bunch. I talk about it a lot, and maybe with Forgotten Land being super duper pop booper relevant again, I'll finally give it its own video. But when talking about efficiency, it can get some things done. It's passable in its own right and all that good stuff, but Compared to the competition, it falls flat in too many ways. It doesn't ever wind up needing to be used at all, and while the ability upgrades are certainly fun, they're not worth going out of your way for in any category beyond a full 100% playthrough, and while it isn't the absolute worst at clearing boss fights, its cup times... Okay, actually, like, what do we call the boss rushes in this game? I called them ultimate cups before, but, like, that doesn't include the Meta Knight cup, so, like, just calling them cups sounds weird, so what do we call them? Alright, very impressive. Again, it isn't bad, and while I'm not going to count it for the sake of this video, I really want to say something nice about Bomb. So, I found using it in a Nuzlocke setting was the best performance that it could possibly have, due to it being fast-ish with boss fights, safe and strong all at the same time. So, it has that going for it, but the only other solace that I can really provide is that it's not the only ability stuck in the low tier. There's one other, that being... Number 12, Cutter. Here's another ability that is just fine. It can pull off a few extra skips compared to Bomb, it's better against bosses, and has better cup times, and even has the very slight niche of being upgraded in most categories with current world record routing. It's actually not Volcano Fire anymore. At least you actually see it in other categories. Similar to Bomb, anything that it can feasibly do well, it's outclassed by other abilities. It's not called Cutter Skip in Searching the Oasis, it's called Drill Skip for a reason. Chakram Cutter, the best cutter for cups, isn't what you think of when clearing boss fights. You think of Twin Drill, Toy Hammer, maybe Morpho Sword. And yeah, there are cool strats that involve using it, but with clever use of better abilities, multiplayer, or just smart routing, Cutter doesn't have much going for it at all. Still, just like Bomb, I would call it good, but unlike Bomb, it's better than Bomb. Trying not getting confused by that one, I guess. So, it's ranked higher. With that said, that's all of the low tiers. We are now moving on to the mid tiers! Woohoo! There's a lot to talk about with these, so let's not waste any time. Or any more time. And by clarifying this, I'm wasting your time. So really, well, while I keep yapping about nothing, if you like the video so far, and Kirby in general, please consider liking this video, subscribing to the channel, and letting me know how excited you are for Star-Crossed Worlds. It's free, helps me out, and spreads my videos to more people. Thank you so very much. Number 11, Ice. This one honestly stings really badly because there was absolutely a time where Ice was one of the best abilities in the game, certainly the most reliable for boss fights. Toy Hammer from day one was always considered the best, and it's constantly in contention with Twin Drill for that coveted spot nowadays, but for story mode playthroughs, they had the major issue of requiring an upgrade. Ice is not only given to you prior to several boss fights, including Goramondo, Florina, and Scale the Cement Summit, which even gives you a bonus Waddle Dee if you manage to freeze her, and, you know, the final boss? It had good cup times, it was amazing for story mode playthroughs, was a genuine contender for any spot in the top 5 throughout the game's early history, except for number 1, anywhere between number 5 and number 2. But then the game got optimized, more tech was discovered, and abilities really started coming into their own. Goramondo stopped requiring ice, mobility became a lot more important for the beginning parts of Everbay Coast, and it was discovered that, with the help of stat buffs, plain old Drill works amazing for the entire set of final bosses, not just the final fight. The game improved, and while many abilities got better, Ice never found its footing. Of course, all of its old tech isn't gone, it's still there and it's great stuff, but is it particularly viable these days? Not quite. Yeah, maybe if Frosty Ice wasn't an upgrade, not because it's better, but because it's really cute and I like it, we'd be singing a different song here, but alas. Number 10, Crash. Now, this is a weird one. Crash, of all things, is actually fairly good in this game, not really hyper-specific things. Most notably, in tandem with Hammer Super Jump, it becomes one of the absolute best abilities for making a complete joke out of some of the fights for the cups. Meta Knight Cup especially, nothing can really compare with effectively being able to one-shot bosses. You do effectively one-shot them with the help of Bandana D as well, if you want to include him in the mix. It also has some perks against bosses in routes that don't use Hammer Super Jump. Truly, it's the most flexible ability of all time. The Time Crash ability sadly doesn't see the most use, which, yeah, that's a shame because it's super cool, but Base Crash works really, really well as a powerful, one-and-done ability that can screen nuke just about anything. Of course, it does oftentimes require outside circumstances, Hammer Super Jump especially, to be good, and even then, a lot of what it can do has been optimized out of efficient play, just like Ice. And while I think Ice is more impressive historically, Crash can still do things that other abilities can't do nearly as well. Honestly, I think you can rank this and Ice in either of these spots, depending on what you value more. I hear a lot that bosses don't matter nearly as much as levels in Kirby games, and kinda that's true, but Kirby games put a pretty large emphasis on bosses compared to other games, especially other platformers, which is where Crash excels the most. That's both a segue and not a segue into our number 9 at the same time. How about that? Number 9, Bandana D. Out of everything in this video, I think Bandana D is by far the hardest to rank. He's multiplayer only for starters, so you can't even use him as Kirby. On top of that, unlike every other Kirby game, it takes a comparatively hot minute to spawn him in and get rid of him. Difficult as it should be to abandon a boy as good as him. If you were to use Bandana D, it would have to be worth it. And when you're just trying to beat the game, he really isn't. If you only follow any percent runs, it may come as a surprise that I found him valuable enough to mention him at all. But funnily enough, the two major reasons why he ranks so high to begin with are for collecting wildies and for helping out with the cups. For rescuing his fellow brethren, the game's mechanics work amazingly in his favor. The camera only follows Kirby, so you want Kirby to be moving forward at all times. So when you have to nab waddledees that are out of the way, why make Kirby do it when Bandana D can do it? On top of that, anything involving his spears, since he's kinda a spear in this game, the stuff all adds up, have plenty of utility as well, including working on targets that are meant for Ranger. With this, Kirby can keep their mobility-focused abilities while moving forward, while solving puzzles, while Bandana D nabs brethren waddledees. As for boss fights, they kinda don't see him as a threat, so when you're doing your insane toy hammer or twin drill or crash stuff and they don't get one-shot because you can't one-shot them, Bandana D can save a good amount of time by spawning directly next to them, poking them with a really long stick, and ending the fight. Without this, Crash would be effectively useless for the cups that it's good in, but realistically, Bandana D can be used alongside any ability. It's tough to say exactly where he should land, but I like this placement for him. Well, not really. A boy this good deserves top 1, but given there were periods of the game's life where he was worse than even sleep, yeah, okay, this is good enough for him. Number 8, Ranger. Out of every placement in this video, this is the one I feel like I'm the most conflicted on. Not by much, but there's a part of me that thinks, maybe I should put Bandana D here and Ranger where Bandana D was down below. Are those facts talking or Bandana D bias? I don't know, but I'm putting Ranger here for 2 reasons. Before getting into those, Ranger does admittedly struggle to find much of a niche in most modes. It does almost nothing for your movement, unlike, say, Drill, and unlike, say, Drill, it doesn't tear bosses to shreds in an instant. It has some solid utility for solving puzzles, solving some that even Bandana D can't, but a lot of what it can do can be handled by Bandana D. I criticized Bomb earlier for only being helpful from a distance, but at least when grounded, I'd argue Ranger is even worse when it's up close. What Ranger has going for it are, funny enough, things that I've already talked about. First, while Bandana D does take care of some of what it can do and take some of its smaller bits of utility away, yes, there are still a few puzzles that Ranger is needed to solve. And while the boost to your movement isn't super notable, just going bazoink-a-zoink in the air after a slide kick jump, it is better than plain old Kirby in that regard. And believe it or not, yes, Ranger is actually really good for bosses, but not in the stand from far away and go pew 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 method a lot of people tend to think it is. No, the very same bazooka zoink from earlier actually decimates health bars rather well. Space Ranger especially is almost top 5 in the entire game for cups, a very impressive feat that makes it an absolute joyride for fighting bosses with. I think its accomplishments are slightly better than Bandana D's, Plus, it doesn't have that multiplayer limit that he does, so I'm ranking them as this, but similar to Crash and Ice, I really feel like you could rank them either way. Number 7, Sword. Yes, even a Sword hater like me has to admit Sword in this game, pretty legit. The base, regular old Sword, that one's pretty bad, but its upgrades really help it out. Gigant Sword is even good enough to go out of your way to get an upgrade for, depending on what playthrough category we're talking about. This is honestly the first time in any of these videos for a regular mode, not cup or something, where that's actually worth it. Gigant Edge is really good against bosses, and while it's not particularly fast, Sword is already one of the slower abilities. Trading virtually no speed for all of the strength that Gigant Sword offers, especially compared to base Sword, is good enough to justify its upgrade. Unfortunately, Mennonite Sword doesn't really offer much, despite how cool it looks, but the final Sword upgrade, the biggest spoiler in this whole video, is Morpho Sword. Many people cite this as the best ability in the game, and while I've been kind of a Morpho Sword hater over the years, I do have to admit it is very good. It deals great damage, moves very fast. What else could you want? Well, I mean, since we are kind of talking about efficiency here, some availability would be nice. Actually being the strongest ability against bosses would be nice. I don't know, having anything to actually do, that would be nice. It's fun, and it's a neat reward for clearing the game, but it doesn't have anything to do. Just Ultimate Cup Z, where, yeah, it's really good, worth praising, but still not the best. Overall, I'd probably say of the swords comparatively, Gigant Sword overall is Sword's best, with Morpho being a second. On paper, Mennonite Sword would still be third, but since you have to go out of your way and upgrade it, waste rare stones, waste time, it's really not worth much. I would have to give the edge to base Sword here, even though Mennonite Sword by far is my favorite of the swords. Such is life, I suppose. Hey, speaking of life though, it's time to get to the high tiers! We're getting to real good stuff now, starting with a controversial pick. Yay! Number 6. Normal? Okay. Hear me out. Regular, honest, 9 to 5, no copy ability Kirby is better than most of the actual abilities in this game. Believe it or not, genuinely, unironically, some other third thingically, yes. For starters, aside from Bandanity and just barely Ranger, and I guess Morpho, that's also true. Too bad you don't need it by the time you get it, okay? I'm gonna stop talking about Morpho, I'm totally normal about this. None of the abilities mentioned have improved mobility compared to normal. The combo of slide kicking into a short hop is just really good, something that even the more mobility-focused abilities, such as Fire, take advantage of. There's a lot of things that you don't need an ability to do, including the enemy bounce super jump. Basically, if you're high enough in the air and you bounce off of an enemy, you can get the same super jump you get from Fire or Ice. Not Hammer, because why would you, but it's still not bad. Of course, Normal's a real claim to fame, something that gets used even in world record speedruns, just like the enemy bounce super jump. I'm not sure why I wrote it like this, but whatever, is how good it is against bosses. For the cups, this means absolutely nothing, it's the worst option, no doubt, but when bosses aren't in one of the cups and they have more health, aka the story mode, and your options are far more limited, the damage output that Normal gets is kinda sorta really insane. In almost every single boss fight, you're better off ditching your ability and dealing massive damage before, getting the old ability back. Yeah, it turns out that Normal being the ability you always have access to at all times, no matter what, is a good thing? That's crazy! Is it unorthodox? Sure, but it's not a bad thing that there's nothing normal about Normal. Number 5, Needle. Well, here we are. Oh, sorry, we're talking about Forgotten Land here. Ahem. And here we are. Finally, an ability with a focus on mobility, and it's the one everyone thought was the worst at being mobile in the early days. Yikes. I guess it still is the worst of the mobility-focused abilities, depending on how you want to define mobile, but even if it is, time has been very, very kind to Needle. Notably, the major discovery, I'm still saying that, is that Needle's spines can also pick up pieces of Leon's soul in the post-game, which gave it a huge boost to its viability in that mode. but that alone can only do so much. In reality, the addition of attack and speed boosts into the meta from the power-up Waddle Dee shop, I think that's what they're called, really solidified just how good Needle can be, especially for the post-game. You now have an ability that's about as fast as Fire and Tornado, has much larger range on it, deals impressive damage still, and gathers the required collectible items that you need to progress and ultimately finish the story. Even with the retry glitch in mind, Needle is still really good for parts of the post-game, but it's been finding more and more usage in other categories too, like all Waddle Dees over the years, because it's just really, really good. It doesn't have to be as good as Fire or Tornado at moving to find viability, but it turns out that only being slightly worse than them sure does help. Bizarrely, while it's not bad for bosses by any means, that's only really the case for Base and Needle. Junk Needle and Crystal Needle are actually kind of bad at boss fights, and they're worse for movement too, meaning that upgrading Needle is a straight downgrade. That's not great game design, but it's wonderful for Needle's viability. I can't speak for any of you, but for me, I love seeing this for Needle. I can't call it a top tier ability as much as I really would like to, but the best of the abilities that aren't in the top tier, bingo! On that note, we now reach the top tiers. The best of the best, these 4 abilities shape the meta of Forgotten Land and destroy this game in various different ways. Let's talk about them. Number 4, Fire. Oh boy, I can imagine this one being controversial. Fire is obviously an amazing ability. It breaks the game in half just fine. In fact, when the game first came out, Fire was basically the only ability that you used if you just cared about beating the game. And going for more complex runs like all Waddle Dees or Hundo really only deviated when absolutely necessary. Fire by itself is capable of handling most of what the game throws at you by itself. It even has a Fire super jump. It's no Hammer super jump, but I don't know, something. Now, of course, the game went on to have insane ability variety, being optimized in ways that some Kirby games could only dream of, and Fire didn't really decimate the game like it originally had. Even ignoring the Mystery 3 abilities that we haven't talked about yet, we saw how much damage that normal Kirby could deal to bosses. We saw Needle's utility, which gave it niches entirely of its own. We even wound up seeing stuff like Gigant Sword and Bandana D creeping their way into the meta, which gave Fire a lot to contend with. And don't get me wrong, Fire is still amazing. It can zoom like crazy and is available as early as the 2nd level of the game through the tunnel. This is still huge, since aside from normal, there's nothing else that's even remotely good until partway through Everbay Coast. Fire will never be anything less than fantastic, but it simply isn't as good as the above 3 abilities. Between power, utility, and speed, all 3 of them do something better, and while Fire is good at most of those things, the keyword being most because wow, is it actually super bad against bosses, it just quite isn't good enough anymore to rank higher. For what it's worth, like I said, it was the best ability in the game, no contest, for a long time early on. So if you can time travel, do it for her. I mean, do it for Fire. Number 3, Drill. Unlike Ranger, which was beloved by fans from the very beginning, and at least had the Ranger-specific missions that we didn't know could be cheesed by Bandana D in the early days, Drill struggled for a long time. Its dash attack was like Fire's, but slower. It was alright for bosses, but Toy Hammer was discovered nearly right off the bat at being overpowered. It didn't have much in terms of utility, it didn't have the meme factor that Ranger had. If anything, people were claiming that Drill replaced Animal due to its ability to dig. Things were looking really bad. And then, things began to change. Digging underground was discovered to have some neat utility, notably for optimizing missions regarding Waddle Dees, saving time over several other abilities. Its dash attack, while not Fire's, was accepted as the really solid dash attack that it is, even allowing tech that it strictly does better than anything else, such as Drill Skip and Searching the Oasis. But the real discovery, that again, that solidified it as a permanent dominant staple in literally every category is how strong it is against bosses. Again, attack and speed boosts really help, but a max-powered drill can accomplish some disgusting feats, with one-shotting bosses just being the start of it. Twin Drill specifically is hilarious, making absolute jokes out of whatever final boss he wanted to find as the final boss, to the point where, by technicality, the sum of best boss fights are faster than even Toy Hammer. Yes, that ability that we were just talking about that was gatekeeping it for so long finally fell to the Twin Drill's drills. Other than Chain Bomb, which is not good, Twin Drill is my favorite ability in the game, and I'm a much bigger fan of Drill than Ranger, so seeing Drill have a form of dominance over Forgotten Lands meta definitely makes me very happy. Is it the best? No. And the ability we see next certainly shows that the more things change, the more they stay the same, but going from zero to hero like this deserves to be celebrated. Number 2, Hammer. Hammer Super Jump. Moving on to number 1. Okay, I'm just kidding, but I can't put into words enough just how much of a game changer Hammer Super Jump was. I guess the fact that there is literally an any percent category that exists, where the only deviation from the usual is that Hammer Super Jump is banned, says enough. Your Fire Super Jump is fine, Ice Super Jump is fine, Enemy Bounce Super Jump is fine, Hammer Super Jump is banned. For those unaware, if you float in the air long enough for Kirby to become tired, puff the air out, slam on the ground with Hammer, and begin a new float, Kirby will zoom me upwards and allow you to do some insane feats. I think entirely skipping one of the final bosses in its entirety is the most insane that it gets, but even if it's just for some waddle-dees, if it's the same time, it's absolutely worth using. This alone would definitely be enough to get it a spot in the top tier, but what allows it to really excel over Drill and Fire are the upgrades. Wild Hammer, it's not much of anything really, but Toy Hammer currently has the fastest completed run of Ultimate Cup Z. Twin Drill may have the lead theoretically, but in terms of what's actually been done, Toy Hammer is barely faster, but faster all the same. And while it's no Toy Hammer or Twin Drill, Masked Hammer is certainly far more impressive than something like Morpho Sword being far stronger, having the fire element for some reason, and even being genuinely really fast with its charged attack. All of these things give it usage similar to Needle in the post-game. Hammer's basically got it all, and I was very close to ranking it at number 1. In terms of insane feats, it certainly has everything else in this game combined beat. But I'm sticking to my guns on this and saying that the number 1 ability in Kirby and the Forgotten Land is number 1, Tornado. This is it, the creme de la creme. While Hammer is focused on utility and power, Drill is laser focused on insanely high damage, and Fire functions as a jack of all trades, Forgotten Land Tornado is everything insane about movement in Kirby games, put onto an ability that can do anything you would want an ability to do in a 3D platformer. No ability is quite like it for completely bypassing puzzles and challenges. It can feel like Tornado has skips and tricks in every single level that it's available in. Normal Kirby becoming so good is also an insane boost for it, allowing you to keep it even alongside boss fights, somewhere it... Hey, what do you know? Tornado's actually pretty good against them. It's no Hammer or Drill, but it's better than most other abilities and way better than Fire. But if it ever does struggle, you can just use normal and not have to worry. Oh, and the out-of-bounds places that it can go, the out-of-bounds places it can go, allowing you to abuse the retry glitch to its fullest potential. Don't even get me started. You can use it twice in succession with no penalty if you start on the ground. The end attack is very useful for hitting things like wanted posters from a safe distance. It is the perfect partner alongside Hammer Super Jump to achieve insane vertical and horizontal feats. It even one-shots the Lost Squishy, which, okay, most things do, but you need to put respect to my goat's name, okay? About the only thing that it doesn't do is compare to some of the best abilities in other Kirby games, even itself if we're talking about a game like Adventure, but I'd hardly blame this game, nor this game's Tornado, for that fact. The rest of the top 4, I kind of think you could put in any order, and I'd agree with it. Maybe you could sneak Needle or Normal in there, and if I'm feeling really generous, I'd say sure, but Tornado just has to be number 1. It does way too many things, way better than too many other things, all while breaking the game in its own unique ways that I just can't see any other ability being the best. This is one Tornado you want to be around. Don't take that out of context. And that's the ranking. I won't keep you any longer because Star-Crossed Worlds is out and I want you to enjoy it. Except, of course, to ask you once again to give the video a like, subscribe, and tell me what you think of the abilities in Forgotten Land. Please, again, enjoy Star-Crossed Worlds, and I can't wait to make videos on that game either. If you would like to go the extra mile to help me out, please consider becoming a Puptron on Patreon or a Mempup on YouTube. Any support helps, and I super appreciate it. Special thanks to my head-patting, Fluffle fan, Puptrons and Mempups, Freakish Uproar, Lydia Scribe, Heavy Points, Galaxy Fan 4, and Lizzie. I love you all! And until I see you all again, I've been Klaire. Thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you around. Bye-bye!